Now that we've created our database availability group, we can begin replicating database copies between the members of that DAG. So I'm still logged into my Exchange Admin Center. And if I click over to this databases view here, we can see that the databases that were created on EBC EX1 in earlier lessons are still there. And there's also this additional mailbox database which was created on EBC EX2 when that server was installed. So what I want to achieve here is I want to add copies of these first three databases to my second server so that they are replicating between both DAG members. And I also want to get rid of this database here, which I just don't really need. So let's begin with the first database, my archive database. And just drop down this menu here and click Add Database Copy. We can see the name of the database and the list of servers that are already hosting a copy of the database, which is only EBC EX1 at this point. And now we get to browse and select a second server to host a copy of the database. We also get to specify an activation preference number. So each database copy has an activation preference number, which is an administrator assigned value which indicates which DAG member you would prefer the database copy to be active on. Now it's not a hard and fast rule, it is just a preference. And generally speaking, you would stagger these across your DAG a little bit so that when you would consider the DAG to be balanced, each server within the DAG would be hosting a roughly equal number of active and passive database copies. Since this is the second copy of this database, we'll give it the activation preference number of 2 and just save that change. Now we can see that this seeding process begins, and what's happening here is the database and the transaction logs that already exist for the database are effectively being copied across to the server that we're adding a database copy to, and then there'll be a resynchronization process. And then at that point, the continuous replication process kicks in, which will keep those database copies in sync under normal, healthy conditions. So what's changed here in our databases view is we now see 2 servers with copies. And over here on the right, we can see the name and the status of each database copy. So this is archivedb/ebcex1. That's in database name/server name format. It is the active and mounted database copy. And at the moment we have a failed and suspended content index state, which I'll come back to a little bit later. The other copy is archivedb/ebcex2, and that is a passive copy, which is in a healthy state at the moment. And we can see we've also got a content index state of failed there as well. So let's not worry too much about that content index state for now. And we'll go on and we'll add database copies for the next 2 databases in the list. Now, as I do the same process for DB2, I'm just going to change the activation preference number of this new copy to 1. And that will automatically set the database copy on EBC EX1, which is currently activation preference 1. We'll set that one to activation preference 2. And now that's complete as well. So don't worry too much about that activation preference change that I made. That will come into play a little bit later on when we look at demonstrations of how to manage switchovers and failovers and how to rebalance a database availability group using the PowerShell script that is provided. Now the last thing I want to do is get rid of this mailbox database here that is located on EBC EX2 only. Let's see what happens if I just try to delete that database. So the database has been deleted, although we do get this warning here that it failed to remove a monitoring mailbox object. And it reminds us that we do need to manually delete the database files from the file system on that server. You may see a slightly different warning message here. You may see no warning message at all. I'm going to add a link below this video which explains how to work around some of the more common causes of why a mailbox database may not delete successfully. and you can work through that depending on what sort of warning or error you saw when you tried to remove yours. And also just remember to log on to the server and manually delete those database files from the path shown there.